What's up, everybody? Nick Powills, publisher of 1851franchise.com. Renee, these are my favorite segments. A long time ago, I went from journalist into PR person, which I call the dark side. And I covered rock stars for a living. That was my beat as a journalist. And when I fell into franchising, I just was enamored with the fact that human beings built up these tremendous careers and then made a decision to go into the business of franchising. And when I started extracting these stories, it made me excited. It was just as powerful, if not more powerful, than a musician who was a rock star. So I consider franchisees rock stars. So to frame this, and this is to someone like in our audience, someone who's maybe thought about franchising or is in the process of franchising. I want to go all the way back to the beginning. We were just talking about 9 years in the system. How did you even decide that franchising made sense? Even before Right at Home, how do you even get to the point of saying franchising makes sense?
Well, I think even pre that, Nick, I have to share that, I was going on a journey from leaving my corporate career and I was doing a lot of networking. I joined some networking groups, boot camp, and I was doing a lot of socializing and mentoring with others. And, I had some people kind of tap me on the shoulder and say, you really need to own your own business. We see that in you. And I had been so, experienced in my corporate career, it wasn't something that naturally I had thought of. But when I had people kind of evaluate what they saw in me and give me that kind of mentorship and direction, I started to seek a business broker. And I started to work with a business broker who had a relationship with Right at Home and other companies. And through that process, I completed like a whole personality profile. He did a deep dive, into what my preferences and skills were. And then he presented to me what he thought would be a great fit to where my skills and strengths lied. And so as I started to think about business ownership, I started to think about ways. What are ways to own a business at my stage and maturity of my career? I did not want to reinvent any wheels. I wanted to have something that was very healthy and that had a framework around it. Coming from a wonderful corporate career, I was used to having, support systems in place. And franchising to me is that beautiful answer where you have a wonderful corporate relationship, a team back in Right at Home corporate who really supports the franchisees. The framework is created and built, and then finding the right business to enter into that would meet whatever skills and also internal rewards and needs that you might have as a person. So that is kind of how I was led to Right at Home. Right at Home was one of 3 businesses that he matched me, for lack of a better term, to. And, I just went through the journey to evaluate all 3. But Right at Home was lockstep with me every step of the way. I wanted to move through it. I wanted to get, to the end result quickly. And it was very naturally how we were able to do that and working with the Right at Home team. The other 2 just kind of fell off. They didn't keep up. They weren't as professional. They didn't really meet my personal need of wanting to do something, a career that I could pick that would have an inner reward of helping people. And when I heard about Right at Home, once I heard the name, I kind of went, wow, that the name hit me really hard in a positive way. First of all, because I've tried to frame my whole life on doing things right and doing things the right way, and Right at Home stands for that, but also because of my personal story as a family caregiver from a young girl.
So lots of things I want to unpack from there. Let's start with the last statement. I've found that majority of those that land in senior care have
Hmm.
had some sort of experience with it in their life story,
Hmm.
because the level of compassion or empathy that has to come along with being in this business has to be high because of just purely what you're dealing with. And you're
Hmm.
dealing with it on 2 sides. You're dealing with it on your client side, and you're dealing with it on the children of your client who are going through 2 different type of emotional roller coasters.
Hmm.
When you look at, like, reflect back on the last 9 years, is does it make sense why your life story was your life story leading up to this point? Like, it actually conditioned you to do this?
Oh, absolutely. I think it created the heart. To me, there's so much heart in what we do. You also have to have really good business sense on top of it. I mean, there's, the different sides to who we are and what makes us who we are. But absolutely, having the heart of, a daughter who had to find ways to help, her mom with her disability, even though her mom might not have wanted the help, and trying to fit into whatever worked best for her and our family dynamic. And then doing that later on in life, it looks a lot different as someone starts to age. Whether they have a disability or not, the aging process creates other challenges. And so, it really matured me and my spirit, and the way that I could, help her became a really big part of my story, about why, when the name Right at Home was put out in the matching process, why it just resonated. It resonated so strong. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's like a calling for me. I think almost all of us in some way, shape, or form have a family member or a friend or someone that we've supported in some way. And literally, almost everyone in our offices, in our business, comes to us with that. They come to us with that part of their background. And we actually look and hire for people who have that heart. They also, of course, like I mentioned, have to have that really good business sense about them. But the heart, that's what you want. You want people who would really care for the families that we are serving, like they're your family, like our right at home family.
You go back to obviously going through this decision making process. And I want to talk about you've now picked Right at Home above the other two in this
Mhm.
process. Was there any moment of being scared, or were you full throttle forward? Or even have there been moments of being scared as a 9-year business?
I think if you're not scared, then you're not trying new and challenging and different things. It was interesting. I had one of the right at home owners, who is our neighbor, say to me, Renee, what I love about you and your office is you guys are always trying new things. Nothing in life stays the same. Right? Nothing does. Every day we're aging, every day the world is aging, every day technology is changing. Everything is constantly changing. Markets change, demands change. Everything is constantly changing. If you're static and you don't change and you don't try new things, then you're complacent and you're not going to move forward. I think a hallmark of my life is I'm very independently self-driven and initiated, and I love to try new things, but I like to do it calculated, where we're doing our research, we're figuring out like what's causing this challenge, this hurdle, we're identifying that, and then with calculation we're trying something new. And it's, of course, it's scary. We're just right now getting ready to open up our third office. It's been a journey finding that right space in that right place. And there are several times like I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, this is challenging. Landlords are different, finding the right place. And it was like scary because, okay, we need to do this. How are we going to find the right place to do it? And if you don't keep moving forward, you can give up. And then where are you? So we kept moving forward, and I'm signing a lease today. We found the right place. It all worked together, and it's just keeping moving forward. I love, and I've shared this with many people, is I try to keep moving forward, and so I'm a faithful person. I pray, shut every door I shouldn't go through, but keep the one open that I need to. And that's how life kind of works out. You just keep trying things where the doors will shut if it's not right. And as you move forward, the right one stays open. You walk through it and shut the door yourself versus it being shut on you. So, yeah, I think being scared is a part of any career, anything in life that you're really trying to move the needle and do a good job with.
I just wrapped up a podcast earlier this morning, and one of the topics that I was addressing is the value of a franchisee to a system. And I'm not going to go into tons
Mhm,
of details on it, other than to
mhm,
say, if you read the press releases, Brand X says, 10, we signed 10 deals last year. It's like,
mhm,
sure, but if I think about Renee's story, not only did you get signed into the system, but you're a scaling franchisee who is not
mhm,
afraid to try new things and keep moving forward.
Mhm.
And so the value of you back to a system is significantly higher than a franchisee that opens up one and doesn't continue to scale. And so when I'm thinking about how do we find people like you, like that's part of the magic. Because if I'm unpacking your story, your personal story into your career,
Mhm.
and then making this decision, and then having people validate like you should be in business for yourself, like it all led up to this.
Mhm.
And the only reason, I would imagine, the only reason Right at Home finds you is because of the business broker having a relationship. Like it had to find you through this process. So I love that background. Out of curiosity, you're now getting ready to make this decision. You're going to sign your operating agreement. Are
Mhm.
you doing this for building wealth? Are you doing this for the a change in life experience? Are you doing this because something to do with family? Like, what is this this North Star that you're following for what's making you finally say, okay, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to scale my business?
I love the whole North Star analogy. I think in life we have to have goals. And so exiting my wonderful corporate career, I learned so much there. I felt like I had all these tools in my hands and all this experience and I felt like I'm young and I have a lot more to offer. I have more to do in my life. I have intention and I have purpose. What is the right fit for that? What is the platform that I'm going to choose? This became a wonderful choice of a second career, maybe a third if you want to look at, high school and college career and then post college career and then, the additional one. But this became my choice. Like, where do I feel that I'm giving back, but also doing all the things you mentioned, building security for my family to a different level, right? Preparing for retirement years down the road. Um, you know, Not only creating a position and a role and a business that would be career changing for me and rewarding for me both internally and externally, but blessing my family and people around me. It's a wonderful thing to have the autonomy to be my own leader. Autonomy is something in a corporate career that is extremely compromised. And as much as economies tighten and cost containment happens and offshoring happens and labor reduction happens and things like that happen that aren't really part of like who I am internally. Some of it has to be, but much of it isn't. The having the autonomy to set my pathway and be able to do that was also and is also extremely fulfilling. And also, in answer to your question, I get to hire wonderful people.
Mhm.
And my team gets to hire wonderful people, and we get to help people who need help. And coming out of the pandemic, Nick, there's nothing better than helping people to stay independent in their own home in a trusted environment where they have one-on-one support and we become part of the family team. And just even going through the pandemic and coming out of that within, the 9-year career, there is nothing more rewarding than to know that we can give family members, loved ones, friends the ability to live independently in their own home with right at home. And I actually like to say that when I'm networking. You know, I love saying that because I've seen all the different dynamics and environments, and there's
Mhm.
nothing better than being at home.
So what I'm hearing throughout everything that we've talked about so far is I'm landing on this culture match. Like you had to find the culture match with the business.
Mhm,
You had to find the culture match internally to make sure it
mhm,
aligned with what your values were.
mhm,
When you were looking at these other two brands in the process,
mhm.
is that ultimately what pushes you away from them? Is that they didn't hit you on the culture side? Because obviously at that point you're financially qualified. You've qualified. You could buy any of these three brands. Is a culture thing also what turned you off from them?
Absolutely. When I was talking about right at home staying lockstep with me, I like to move and think quickly. There's times when you have to slow down, but I really felt like not only did they keep up that pace, but their professionalism really showed me the tip of the iceberg of the right at home culture. And so being able to see that culture, and currently I'm in a couple of roles in right at home as a voted and representative for our Western states and also on our Strategic Leadership Council. Not only have I been able to see, embrace, and benefit from the right at home culture, but now I get to see it even more closely with my involvement in the with the corporate team in those roles. And I also see it from the neighboring right at homes. And as you get involved in a franchise structure such as right at home, you start to get to know through the annual meetings and just the local meetings and the different things we do to work together and collaborate. You get to meet more owners and be part of a system. And we have a wonderful system, and the culture is people like me, people, different, but bringing a similar need and drive and want into their lives and their clients' lives and their teams' lives to help each other. So the culture is huge, and I cannot emphasize enough what a beautiful fit. But again, the name Right at Home, I just think it represents so much, trying to do things right, trying to be a good person, trying to help people. I just think the culture at Right at Home is second to none. And that's what our whole business represents, the brand, the culture, all of it put together. It's a whole package.
Well, I think it's even more telling that you're saying this now 9 years later. Because, like, going into a business, there are plenty of businesses that can fake it till you make it. They can convince you
Yeah.
why their brand makes sense, and to some extent, in franchise sales, there are brands that are going to try selling you on why their franchise makes sense. Here,
Hmm.
you're validating 9 years later, which I think is awesome. Another thing that I'm hearing from you. You talked about the name. You're talking about impact to people. You're talking about how you're able to impact your staff. Like, it
Hmm.
seems like you're in business, so yes, money is important, but it seems like you're taking an approach that, let's do good, money will come from our behaviors. When you have that governor, and let's say you're talking to a prospective franchisee that's reached out to you and says, Look, I'm thinking about right at home," and you're like, "Well, why are you doing this?" They're like, "I just want to make a lot of money." Like, do you also have this governor that you could tell someone this isn't the right brand for you then, because of what you've been through as a human?
So it's very interesting, Nick. I talk to, I'm going to say, a ton of what we call validation calls. And we've seen a growth in my state, California, just exponentially grow this year. And so I've had a chance to mentor, talk, and see people coming through the system quite a bit. Right at Home does a really good job of validating who they're bringing through. I almost never get that question from a validation call. They want to know my story. They want to know why. They want to know, why I'm here, why I select a right at home, what makes them better. And of course, there's a financial aspect to it. But almost everyone that's contacting me, and again, this is back to the culture question and the answer to that. I think the right at home team does a really good fit of bringing people forward into the validation process where they're calling me and asking me, how'd you do it? What do you think? What should I do? Those types of things. Never are they like, I'm here to make a lot of money. You're absolutely right in your assessment. I feel like if you're doing the right thing and you're smart and calculated about your risks and you find the great match with the calling in your life to the business and the business model, being in this case right at home franchise, I think it will come. We've done a lot, and just to kind of expand on that, if I can for a
Mhm.
minute, we've done a lot in our business to grow and take risks before the actual business came. And each time we've done it, we started with one territory and one office. We now have three territories and we're opening our third office. And we've scaled staff and offices to grow. And I think it's a movie like if I, bring it, it will come. And so it's happened for us. And it's us trying to be the right people in the right place at the right time. But also right now we're trying to grow a market that's a very unusual market for us, and we're hiring the culture. We are hiring the culture to create the culture to support the market. So it's a whole different look at what you can do and how you can grow. And I really try to pride myself in my team does a fabulous job of trying to solve problems. So if you look at a problem as an opportunity to find a solution versus a wall that you're going to have a bloody forehead beating against, it's all in how your approach is and how you approach problems and obstacles and risks and fear and how you overcome them.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I apologize for putting you on the spot with this question. But I'm curious because your demeanor is very welcoming, and so
Hmm.
I have a feeling I know what the answer is to my question. But
Hmm.
you hear about the labor challenges that exist in the category.
Hmm.
But you just said I'm opening up my third office. I'm going to hire the culture first. And I'm not trying to brown nose with this statement, but it seems like you probably have nobody's going to have a perfect zero turnover business, but do you feel like it doesn't hit you as much because you have this, again, North Star, talking about team, like all the things you're saying, I think miss sometimes from the hiring culture, which in turn creates turnover. So
Hmm.
the question is, do you feel stressed by the labor side, or do you feel like because of your approach, it's making it a little bit easier because people want to be a part of the team?
I think as a leader, you have to recognize and be real about the challenges. But if we're not positive and solution oriented, then who does your team follow?
Mhm.
I think you have to be aspirational and you have to be creative and you have to try different things. And the wonderful thing about a franchise system is there are owners who've done it before me. So I seek them out. I find them. I don't have all the answers. I have found the answers through a lot of different means and ways. We have an annual meeting every year, which we'll be going to in April. And when we first had our Pasadena office and we acquired our West Covina territory and we were struggling to grow it, I was on a mission to find out how did other owners grow their additional territories out of one office. And I found the answer. They don't. They create a second office. We did. And I expect this year we're going to be a multi-million dollar business in the second office. But we had to find the answer. We had to figure out
Mhm.
what's the next step? What are we not doing? What are we not thinking of? I don't have all those answers, but there's so many people in the system who have a wealth of information. You seek them out, you find them, you make it your own. You don't just do what somebody else did. You get the data, you pull it in, you synthesize it, you make it your own, and then you figure out what do I need to do, which is exactly why we're opening up our third office because we're hiring the culture, we're creating it, and we're going to plant that in there, and we're working with our chambers and our networks, and it's such a culture. I mean, no person can do any of this by themselves. It's a great framework in our system, and I do feel our turnover, to be more specifically direct with your answer, I do feel like our turnover has been one of the best in class as being lowest, not the lowest, and we've had high points. Don't get me wrong, we've had those, but then when we see that, or if we get a survey that is lower than what we like, we're like, oh, what can we do better? How can we, meet, our employees where they want to be met? What problems do we need to put in place? We've put some really good things in place just because I have a great team
Mhm.
and they have great diversity of knowledge, and we're constantly trying to sharpen the saw and figure out what we can do better.
So a few comments on that. One is, like, I think curiosity and then problem solving are two traits that are very vital to a
Hmm.
franchisee. Now, there are certainly systems where there's less of it. I think like a burger restaurant that is just down the line burgers. There might be a little bit less of that problem solving than say
Hmm.
senior care. But I love those qualities because I think it ends up being vital to the system, or
Hmm.
to the business's success. The other thing that I think is important to note as you were saying this, like, you think about the royalty that you pay as a franchisee, and
Hmm.
most franchisees say I pay this royalty to the franchisor, and what support do I get from them? What I just heard from you, you said, yeah, obviously I want the support from right at home, and check mark, I've been very happy with the experience.
Hmm.
But you said, well, actually, it is. me paying to be a part of this network, I'm going to go access the other franchisees. And I think
Mhm.
I was at a conference once, not right at home, and they had the top 3 franchisees on stage.
Mhm.
The third one went from middle of the pack to number 3, and they said, "How did you do it?" And he said, "I spent 10% of every dollar on marketing. I just changed my viewpoint on marketing." There was a franchisee next to me out in the audience, and he pokes me in the side. He goes, "That guy's an idiot." I'm like, "No, he just gave you the blueprint on how to get to the top in his viewpoint." And so I think it's important to note that when you're a franchisee, when you're in this, it's not just about saying what has the franchisor done for me. It's also what advantages have I taken from my fellow franchisees who are in this too. And I think that's awesome on your approach that you've taken. Anything you want to add on what I just said?
I do, Nick. So you took away a great conclusion to what I mentioned, and it's very easy to sit in your office and run your business and just look down and be focused on what you have, right? You have to look up and look wide. If you're not looking up and wide and engaging in your system, you're missing a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of knowledge. And again, these are people who are vetted through the corporate team who take a lot of pride in doing that. So these are typically people like me and the other franchisees who want to help each other. I take a lot of validation calls because I'm invested in helping the right people to get into the system. And so you have that across the nation. Why would you not engage into that? So you're never really alone. It's your own business. You're running your business. You have an entity. It's your entity name. You're responsible for everything from A to Z. But you have this great framework with the franchise system, and you have this other great framework with the franchisees, which, as you see in the background, you call us Z's, which cracks me up.
Mhm.
But the Z's it's a wealth of knowledge. It's a wonderful pool of talent and experience. Everybody is diverse. Everybody comes from a different background. We're trying to, meet a diverse market right now in our third territory. So I'm, like I said, out there like, hey, and going to our annual meetings and talking to people like, how did you do it? What do you recommend? And you get the best advice. Why would you not ask people who have been there, done it, and done a great job? It's a wonderful platform to help each other. And my sense is look up and look out and broaden your world, and don't just isolate yourself into your own business. Reap the rewards and also give. You give to get back, right? That's the right orientation. That's the right mindset. And you're always going to get back, even if you go to annual meeting for the ninth, 10th time, 12th, 15th, 20. There are people in the system over 20 years. They still go to the annual meetings. They're the ones who are helping to mentor others, but I'm sure they always take back something new because things are always changing. It's a great network on many levels to reap the rewards from.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we could have taken the direction of let's talk about point of differentiation in the product, how much it costs to get in, how much it can make, and those sales discussions are certainly you need the check marks, and in any business that you're
Mhm.
looking at. What I love about a discussion like this is one, franchisees sell franchises, in my opinion.
Mm.
What we just heard from you is you're validating 9 years later. You're opening up your third unit. You wouldn't have put more money into this business if you didn't believe in it. And so, to someone that's watching this, my hope is that they listen to what you're saying, certainly pull out nuggets, and understand that you're not just buying the franchise, you're buying the franchisees. And when you look around the room and you say, I'm buying into these people who have invested their life savings for the chance to build something special. I think it's awesome to obviously get to meet someone like you. Do you get to pinch yourself ever? Like, do you ever get to pause and say, this has been pretty cool? Or is it so like, are you so driven to the next step that you don't stop and smell the roses?
My husband and I are very grateful. The pinching does happen, but sometimes we're working so hard, we have to remind ourselves to stop, smell the
Yeah.
roses, and think about that. We just returned back from 2 trips. We were, very grateful to say we're at our president's circle, which that's a pinch me experience. Wonderful, trip with a whole group of franchisees who have worked very hard and do a great job. We also are members of performance groups within our system, which is where we sharpen the saw with other owners who are like our board of directors. And so we just came back from that trip just a week ago. And those are kind of pinch me times because, we're working with each other to help each other. But you also, as you do that, you can also see how much you've learned and how much you've grown. And so that is a wonderful, wonderful moment. But there's still so much more to do. I'm never going to rest on my laurels and just, be complacent. That's a killer and we don't ever want that. So gratitude and, just happiness and joy. But also, I will say, I am also working on building my future leaders. So it's another pinch me moment where, wow, we're at that stage now where we're building the future right at home, Pasadena, West Covina, San Gabriel, which are our territories, leaders, which is very exciting. And I'm very happy to be entering that stage.
I love this. I mean, like ultimately, if I'm a candidate that's watched this, and certainly you can close with any advice you have for them, but
Mhm,
if I'm a candidate in California, and obviously you can look at a state, even though it's
mhm,
they're not real lines of blockage of communication. You can still talk to someone in another state, but you look at people that are you're going to be your peers. Oftentimes, when you're performing due diligence and in the process of buying a franchise, you're trying to sniff out like, would you do this again? Like that's part of the question, and you're
mhm,
almost like looking to the franchisees to talk you out of doing it, which I don't
mhm,
think is a bad approach, but it
mhm,
it happens. Here, if you're a candidate and you're looking at this, if I'm trying to judge this, I'm looking at you, Renee, and I'm saying, you could be my peer in California. That's a huge value too. That just added value to the entire structure of what business I'm looking for. But as we close out here, is there anything you want to say to someone that's potentially thinking about this of advice or closing remarks?
Um, oh my gosh, I'll have to try to narrow that down. There's so much I would want to say. um, if you really seek a greater good and to help people, but also grow your career, but also have the autonomy that when you work for others, you can find yourselves in positions where you're not learning from the people that you work for anymore. You're at a point in your career where you feel like you've capped out, you're not growing, your culture might be different from the culture you're in. Owning your own business is not for the faint of heart. You have to have a strong will. You have to be solution oriented. You have to be a go getter and have initiative. So, if you find yourself in a situation where the fit in your current situation isn't working for you anymore, franchisees and franchising is not just fast food. There's so many right at home, that's such a different type of franchise versus what we see every day when we're driving down the streets and the freeways, right? We know what we see on a day-to-day basis, and this is just the ability to help people, and it's such a greater good to stay independent in their own homes, which again, post-pandemic, we know is the best place to be. There's also this silver tsunami that they're talking about where the baby boomers are aging. And that's another like calculated risk. Where am I going to enter a business? What's my trajectory?
Mhm.
Where is my business going? What capabilities do I have? And so there's all these factors that you can pull into making a decision about what's right for you. I highly recommend Right at Home. I would not be talking to you. I would not be here for 9 years and planning to be here for many more if I didn't. It's a wonderful fit for me and my family and my team and my business and our clients. And you get the opportunity to be active in your community, support your community, and that's your local community, but also be your own business leader, have autonomy, and do great for your team, your staff, others. I mean, there's so much good to it. But it's not for the faint of heart. You have to be strong. And what I've already spoken about, you have to look at challenges in the right way. And when you have hardships, you have to use that network the Right at Home Network, the Franchisee Network, because there's a lot of people who can help you through. And so I think that's what I would, leave someone looking at this with. And I would say, call me. I'll help you. I think you give, and goodness always abounds from that.
Bravo. Wonderful conversation. I greatly appreciate this. I'm grateful that I got to spend the last 30 minutes learning your story too. And, I've always said this, that brands don't sell brands, people do. And when you build a culture of great people that are as unified as possible, there's always going to be franchisees who are the outliers. But man, your story is great, and I'm looking forward to hearing where it goes from. I don't think we're far from done. So I'm looking forward to where the story goes. So Renee, thank you so much for sharing some of it with us today.
My pleasure, Nick. Nice to meet you and talk with you, and good luck in the future to you.
Thank you so much. For Renee, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Z. Take care, everybody.